12:07 a.m. p.m. here at WUSB Stony Brook. This is Jersey Jim, and I have a special guest on the line here, Mr. John Densmore from The Doors. John, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire staff at WUSB for joining us for a few minutes of your time to talk about your new book. So if you'd like to tell our listeners a little bit about your book and why you wrote it and what's it about, it's all yours.
Wow. You know, I think we played Stony Brook 100 years ago.
Yes, you did, as a matter of fact, and I was going to ask you about that. That's
actually,
something that you remember.
Great yoga singer Krishna Das was in the audience. So anyway, The Doors Unhinged, Jim Morrison's Legacy Goes Up on Trial, is my second self-centered memoir. The first one, Riders on the Storm, was about the band, of course. And this one is about the band, but it's about the struggle to keep the name pure. Jim Morrison the Doors without Jim, the Police without Sting, the Stones without Mick. I can't swallow that. And so I had to enter a litigation to put the Doors back on their hinges, which they are.
Now, everything was relatively fine all the way up until the turn of the century. It's funny to say turn of the century, but everything was pretty much okay with you guys up until the turn of the century. And did those guys approach you or anything about doing this, or did they just go out and do it? And how did that all happen, and how did you find out that they were doing what they were doing?
Well, I mean, they were going to play one gig, and I was having trouble with the ringing in my ears, and so I said, go ahead. And then they booked a tour, a world tour, and I complained, so they put the 21st century, the Doors of the 21st century, after the Doors, and made it real small so nobody saw it. So I had to do something.
So it's kind of like, I think, I forgot the name you used, the Deej Imitator. They more or less toured with like a Deej Imitator trying to fill in, and kind of didn't sit well with a lot of people. I mean, with a lot of bands, there's some bands that, you know, they're like a unit when they're together, and whenever there's a part of that unit that's missing, it's just not the same, you know. And I kind of think the Doors is a perfect example of that. You guys, it was like you were four entities that just joined together and created this mountain of, you know, music that's, you know, lasted all this time. And I can understand it kind of ruins the integrity. And unfortunately, Jim wasn't around for the turn of the century to see all this go down. But there was a point in the band's history where there was a question about using a Doors song for a TV commercial, and it didn't sit too well with Jim. And there was a segment in the Oliver Stone movie about that.
Yeah, well, that's what I base my decisions on, vetoing all these offers to use the songs for commercials, because Jim said, "Oh, you come on, Buick, light my fire. Okay, I'll smash the car on television with a sledgehammer." Uh-oh.
Yeah.
He's against this. And, you know, thinking about us as a unit, a wonderful thing happened a long time ago where we were introduced as Jim Morrison and the Doors, and he dragged the announcer back out on stage and made him reintroduce us as the Doors.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too long after the Buick commercial that you guys actually signed some kind of agreement that anytime the Doors image or anything that had anything to do with the Doors was going to be used, it was going to be an agreement on the four of you, you know, to let that happen.
Yeah, well, actually, that was due to Jim's pushing, and he was going off to Paris, and he wanted to make sure we did not dilute the songs. And those are exhibits that were in the trial.
Speaking of going to Paris, do you think Jim had any idea that he wasn't coming back? Or, I mean, was there any kind of like indication that he acted differently?
But he was. This was an era where we didn't have substance abuse clinics, and we didn't know he had a disease called alcoholism. I'm always asked this question: if he lived today, would he, be clean and sober? And I I always used to say, nah, kamikaze drunk. I look at Eminem, a very talented, angry guy like Jim, and of course Clapton, and maybe why not? It's a different time.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of the other fortunate things that one of the things that came out of this trial and everything is the fact that you got to meet Jim's father, which you really didn't get a chance to meet him until near when the trial came up, and I guess that was a pretty good experience for you to actually finally meet his father.
Yeah, it was a real blessing. And his dad was 86 when he came to the trial, and his relationship with his son was not good. Jim said that his parents were deceased in his original bio. The 60s rebel,
Yeah, exactly.
And, mainly it was due to we were against the Vietnam War, and his dad was in Vietnam commanding battleships. And here he comes at the end of his life to support his son's legacy. It was really touching.
Yeah, that is really touching. I often wonder what Jim Morrison would have thought of the violence and everything that goes on in the world today, like 9/11 and things like that. How he would have felt.
Well, he wrote Breakfast Where the News is Read, Television, Children Fed, Unborn, Living Dead, Bullet Strikes the Helmet's Head, and it's all over for the unknown soldier.
Yeah. A lot of people ask you the question, where were you when he passed away? But has anybody ever asked you, like, what was your last? Do you remember the last time you saw him and what you guys were doing? Were you recording or something?
Well, what sticks in my mind is he called me. I had the last conversation with him before he died, of anybody in the band, and he called from Paris, and he was interested in how L.A. Woman was doing, and I was like, oh, it's just through the roof. They won a second single, Riders on the Storm, after Love Her Madly, and he said, oh, yeah, that's great, and I'll come back and we'll do some more. And he didn't.
Speaking of like songs like that, there is out in the digital world out there's recordings of one of the last performances that you guys did as a foursome, and you actually did L.A. Woman. Is there anything in the vaults from that point in time that hasn't come out yet? Because I know you guys, I don't know if it's the surviving members that decided this, but it just seems like over the years it's been really clever how every so many years there's something new that comes out. It's almost as if the band is still completely alive. At first you had Alive She Cried, the American Prayer in '78, and then the box set in the early '90s, and then the most recent thing that I've seen is the Bright Midnight collection with all the live archives. I mean, is there anything left? I mean, that's out there. And did you guys have anything to do with how all that stuff came out?
Well, Bruce Botnick is the reason it's been, kind of tastefully every few years. There's something. He's our original engineer. He knows all the songs really well. And so when, like, digital or some new technology is invented, he's the one who carefully puts it all together. And he certainly runs it by all of us, and we make comments, but he's kind of orchestrated that. And I don't think there's much left, but if there is anything, he'll get it out.
Yeah, it's like I said, really good job on him doing that over the years, because it makes everything fresh again. When something new comes out, it just adds to what's already else is out, and I liked how they did that. And then the other thing is that after the trial and the book and everything, did you guys like kind of start to rekindle everything, and how did all that go?
I sent the last chapter. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I sent the last chapter to Ray and Robbie before it was published with a note saying I want to make sure you read this because the first part will be kind of tough, but this part I say, how could I not love you guys? You're my musical brothers. We created this giant thing out of a garage. And then when I heard Ray was getting sicker, I called him and said I was drumming for his health, and he thanked me, and thank God we had a closing conversation. I didn't know he was going to pass.
Yeah, that was a shock for all of us, actually.
And so then when he did pass, I called Robbie and said, look, let's play Doors songs we haven't in 20 years or 10 years, whatever it is. And let's do a concert for Ray and make it a benefit for cancer. So that's in the works.
Very nice. You also have something coming up. You're going to be in New York City this Friday at J&R Records. You want to tell people a little bit about what you're going to be doing there with your book signing and all that?
Yeah, well, I sign books, and I self-published, so I put out a paperback as well as a hardback at the same time in case folks needed to not pay as much for a book. And I get to meet everybody, and I really like it.
Yeah, how's the reception's been? Pretty good?
The library the day before, the Lincoln Center, the New York Public Library at Lincoln Center, 6 p.m. on the 26th.
On the 26th at the Lincoln Center?
That's Thursday, yeah.
That's Thursday.
And then Friday at noon is J&R downtown.
I'm probably going to try to see you on Friday.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you taking some time out. I know you...
Introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. By the way, my name is Jersey Jim, and I'm talking to John Densmore, and we're talking about his book that just came out back in April, The Doors Unhinged, on Percussive Press. And it's been a delight to talk to you. And, you have anything coming up in the future after this book tour? Are you going to get together with anybody? I know you just talked about doing something with Robbie. But you have anything else planned after that?
Well, I'm going to go around and do more book signings because I really like meeting everybody, and I'm hoping that people get from this book that I was trying to preserve the legacy of the band.
I'm sure they do. The majority of the people, I kind of remember when all of that started happening, and like I said, some bands you just can't replace some of the people. Although, Other Voices, that's always been one of the albums I've liked that the three of you guys worked on, and I thought there was quite a few tracks on that album, like Tightrope Ride and Ships with Sails and The Eye of the Sun. I thought those songs were pretty good. I thought that was a really decent album. And I don't think is that officially out on CD, do you know of?
Well, now, there you go. There's something. I think those last... Other Voices Full Circle could be combined on a CD and put out. That'd be good.
Yeah, a lot of good songs from those albums, and
good songs. But we needed that baritone singer.
Yeah, that was the one thing that was missing. There's also some videos that I see of the three of you guys too. So, but it was different. It wasn't the same, like you said. You're missing that baritone, and
all right, Jersey Jim.
Thank you so much, John Densmore. I really appreciate you taking the time out for us. And good luck on the rest of your tour. Again, you're going to be at J&R Records in Manhattan Friday at noon. And the Lincoln Center Thursday. And did you say Thursday evening?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. So if you want to meet John Densmore and get a copy of his book, that's where he's going to be. So, John, thank you so much on behalf of the whole entire staff with us, and thank you for everything that you've done, and thanks for remembering Stony Brook University. That's really cool.
All right.
You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.